Hey everyone, William here with Imaging Resource, and in this video I want to share with you a series of my favorite tips for bird photography, although most of these tips can also work for general wildlife photography as well. So if you're looking to brush up on your bird photography skills or add a few more techniques to your tool belt, let's dive on in.
Let's start with some gear related tips. The first one here, find yourself a long telephoto lens. The first one is a pretty important one and perhaps a fairly obvious one, but for excellent bird photos, you're going to want a long super telephoto lens. In my experience, the longer the better, but a good starting point is around 400 millimeters. I tend to find myself photographing small songbirds, which are both small and often far away, so I like having as much reach as possible. Small songbirds in particular are often farther away than you might realize, so getting a lens that's as long as possible can really help bring that faraway subject up close, as well as really isolate it with good subject isolation and background blurring. With the telephoto lens, you're able to bring faraway subjects closer in, and one of the best creative benefits to such a lens is the ability to isolate your subject and create smooth, blurry backgrounds. The ability to remove distractions is one of the great benefits to a telephoto lens. One of the tips that I try to keep in mind, and sometimes fail at myself, is pay attention to the background. Be mindful of leaves, tree branches, or other objects that are positioned behind your subject. I often find myself concentrating more on nailing focus on the bird or waiting for a pleasing pose, only to later realize that there's a distracting branch or a bunch of leaves behind the subject. With the narrow field of view of a super telephoto lens, only a small amount of movement or shift in your angle or position can make a big difference, so try to reposition yourself and keep in mind the background behind your subject. When photographing birds in particular, you'll likely find yourself pointing upwards into the trees. While this can work and can sometimes make for some interesting images, oftentimes you'll be photographing the underside of the animal, which might not be the most attractive pose or position. If possible, try to position yourself at a different elevation, or more at the same level of the bird. This is more easily accomplished when photographing near bird feeders, or if you're fortunate enough to find yourself in a location with elevated walkways or trails that can put you more up into the tree level. For shorebirds, water birds, or other ground birds, another great option is to get down low to the ground, getting you close to eye level. Getting down low can help create a really pleasing look to the water and really emphasizes the shallow depth of field and makes your subject stand out more. If possible, try to position yourself so that the sun is behind you. That way, you're positioned so the sun is illuminating your subject, the bird, rather than the other way around. You don't want to be photographing a bird with the sun behind it, as it will likely be harshly backlit and underexposed. With the sun illuminating the bird, you're able to capture all the beautiful colors and feather detail of your subject. Another important tip is to keep an eye on your shutter speed, especially using a faster shutter speed for sharper photos, especially for birds in flight. The traditional rule of thumb has been using a shutter speed of 1 over the focal length of the lens in a full-frame camera. So for example, for a 500mm lens, a good starting point is 1/500th of a second in order to avoid blurring from camera shake. This means the longer the lens though, the faster the shutter speed needs to be. Now, for birds in flight, a good starting point here is 1/1000th of a second, but I'd recommend shooting with even faster speeds. 1/1000th is a minimum here. You'll probably get better results if you shoot with even faster shutter speeds, like 1/2000th of a second. But when photographing birds that are perched or other slow-moving wildlife, the image stabilization system allows me to shoot at a slower shutter speed and thus a lower ISO setting. Many full-frame format super telephoto lenses can be quite large and heavy. So another great tip to keep in mind is using a tripod or monopod. Many of these lenses can hit the 6, 7, or 8 pound range, which can get very tiring to use handheld for any length of time. These last two tips are more general bird and wildlife photography advice rather than gear related or technique. While it's certainly fun to explore a new location sight unseen, but it helps to have some familiarity with your location to help better your